Welcome back to another deck tech video where I break down a deck and how to build it. Today I want to go over one of my favorite decks to play, but before I do, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Now let's get into it. Today I want to go over a commander from Baldur's Gate, and that is Jon Irenicus, Shattered One. This commander is such a fun card to play, and that is because of its main ability. And this ability is, at the beginning of your end step, target opponent gains control of up to one target creature you control, put 2+1/+1 counters on it, and tap it. It's goaded for the rest of the game, and it can't be sacrificed. Wow, that was a mouthful. Now, let's just summarize it up. Basically, at your end step, you get to choose if you want to give a creature to an opponent, and if you do, it's goaded, can't be sacrificed for the rest of the game. Such a crazy ability. Now you might be thinking, why would you want to give creatures to your opponents? And that's a fair question. One reason is because of its second ability, which allows you to draw cards when they attack. But of course that's not the only reason, because that wouldn't be enough. We also want to give them crazy creatures that don't help them, they actually hurt them. For example, one of the cards that I love in this deck is Evil Eye of Ormsbegor. This is a 3/6 that makes it so all non-eye creatures you control can't attack, and it can only be blocked by walls. And now if you make your opponent control it, now their non-eye creatures can't attack. So, you see where this is going? I also love when I play this card specifically to mess with people and say, well, it's not my fault you didn't play enough eyes. Keep in mind that there are only 6 eyes ever printed, and one of them is silver border. So, it's not likely that they're going to have any eyes in their deck. Another truly fantastic card for this deck is Flesh Reaver. This beautiful 6/6, and you can't deny that this card is a beautiful one, reads that whenever it successfully deals damage to a creature or an opponent, it deals that much damage to you. So when you successfully give this to your friends, they have to attack with it, and the best part is even if it's blocked, it still deals damage to the friend that you gave it to. And that's not the only upside. In case you didn't realize, this thing only costs 2 mana, so sometimes you'll be able to give it to them turn 2 or 3 depending on how much ramp you hit, and it is such a backbreaker. Another couple of cards that are absolutely brutal in this deck are Desecration Elemental and Ebon Drake. These both have an effect that goes off every time that a player casts a spell, not an opponent, a player casts a spell. Ebon Drake will just cause them to lose a life, which isn't terrible, but Desecration Elemental will cause them to sacrifice a creature, and this is every time anybody plays a spell. I don't know if you guys know this, but the way you play the game is casting spells. That being said, these cards can have a massive difference and swing the game in a bunch of different ways, and on top of all that, they have decent power and toughness too. Now moving on, I personally didn't put any of these cards in my deck because I thought they were a little mean, but I figured I should at least mention them. These kinds of cards are the ones that reduce your hand size. The cards that come to mind for me are Thought Eater and Thought Devourer. Like I said, I thought that they were a little feel bad, so I didn't put them in the deck. I wanted my friends to be able to still play. But if you don't care and you just want to be mean, well, you could obviously throw them in there. Now that we've covered some of the fun cards that you have in the deck, now I think we have to move on to how this deck wins, and of course, one of the obvious ways is to control the board and use some of your bigger creatures, even though they hurt you, to just finish off the last opponent. Or maybe use an evacuation to your advantage, because it's going to return all the big creatures you've given people to your hand, and you can play them pretty cheaply because they're supposed to hurt you. Now, and again, they'll hurt you, but you're only going to have them for a couple turns ideally, so it shouldn't matter that much. However, I do want to cover the way that I've seen to win the most with this deck, and that is with Reigns of Power. Let me explain. This deck is very clearly setting you up to let your opponents beat each other up because they have to deal with the big creatures you're giving them, and then come down to a 1v1 at the end. So if you have Reigns of Power in your hand, what you're able to do is when it's on your turn, you play Reigns of Power, and you take everything that your opponent has, which is going to be a big board that you've given them, and stuff that they played throughout the game, and then you're able to use it and kill them with their own stuff. So that's typically the way that this deck is won when I played it, just so that you understand, kind of how the deck plays. That should be basically everything you need to build this deck. As always, I will have the full deck list in the description. If you found this video helpful, consider leaving a like, and for more magic related content, subscribe. That's all until next time, whether on this plane or another. Have a wonderful day.